The Philippine National Security Advisor Eduardo Año said on X that China's action, quote, is less about protecting the environment and more about justifying its control over a maritime feature that is part of Philippine territory. It is a clear pretext toward eventual occupation. Now, Scarborough Shoal lies within Manila's exclusive economic zone, just 134 nautical miles from the Luzon coast. In 2012, it was seized by China, which operates a near blockade around the feature. This week, on September 10th, China's State Council approved an application to establish the nature reserve, which under Chinese law means foreigners must first gain approval from Chinese authorities to visit. A nature reserve is divided into an off-bounds core area, a buffer area only for scientific research, and an experimental zone that permits research and visits. Professor Chen, let me come to you first. So we're going to show again the map that was provided by China. What do you make of the selected areas for protection versus those that are not?
I think this is a bigger area where it rises up the sea level, so it is designated as a reservation area. So I think this is quite arbitrary. There is no political or strategic meaning for drawing the line in the north part of the rock or instead of the south part. The Scarborough Shoal actually separates into two parts of the rock. The line we see over there is the North Rock.
So presumably, though, if there's only part of it that's protected, the rest of it could actually be developed. I mean, we know that China has built up these artificial islands, Mischief Reef, Fiery Cross.
I think basically what China is doing this, there are two purposes. The first one is that by enforcing and this claim, basically, China wanted to show to the whole world that they own these places, so that whether you want to come in and operate, you have to gain the approval. So that means that this place is owned by China, and only Chinese, they have the authority to issue you whether you could do this or not. And second thing, I think that they specifically leave out the entrance point, whether the people or the fishing boat, they can enter within the area of the Scarborough Shoal.
Professor Chen, I mean, is it a coincidence that what you're saying is that strip that has the protection, but the very tip of it does not fall under a protected area?
Right. I think this is a very interesting part, like Dr. Lai just mentioned. The only access point of the Scarborough Shoal is in the southeast of the shore. And it's very narrow, only 9 meters deep. So leaving that part out of the reserved zone, that may show that China would have other ways to regulate the access to Scarborough Shoal.
So you mean like perhaps build a checkpoint there?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, if it is a natural reserve area, you can imagine they can build some facilities to manage the natural environment, right? However, we haven't seen plans like this. And because China says it is mainly trying to protect the coral reef around the Scarborough Shoal from the fishing activities. So
that would eliminate, I mean, you said that those were the features that were above water. But if we're talking about coral reefs, ones that are below water should also be protected, right?
Yes.
So does this seem to point to, I mean, it's interesting that it's come, we know that Philippines has been planning to take China to arbitration over their environmental damage in the West Philippine or South China Sea. Do you believe that this really is about protecting the environment?
Well, of course not, right? It is an excuse. However, I think this is the excuse China will use to expel Filipino fishing activities or patrol activities around the area.
Right. President Lai, Jay Batam-Bacol, maritime security expert in the Philippines, he said that he believes that this kind of arrangement or law means that the Chinese could actually arrest fishers and then use them as some form of leverage to coerce the Philippines. Do you see this kind of thing happening or pointing towards that direction?
That definitely will enable China to do things according to what Chinese version of the maritime law they want to enforce. But I think that China will basically arrest anyone should they really come across their red lines when they establish. They do not need some additional law. But I would say that if you look at the recent South China Sea development, not just about China, they are establishing, they are building the sand on the sea, but also Vietnam quickly establishing several the islets or the rocks and turn them into the bases. And I think that this action basically has an aim that want to prevent that kind of island building effort copied by the Philippines.
Right. And Professor Chen, understand that this is the first time that they've created a nature reserve in the South China Sea. But what have we seen from their playbook that is similar, that would mean, perhaps arrests, law enforcement, particularly aimed at perhaps Taiwan?
Oh, but ended at Taiwan?
Yeah.
Okay. I think
or either.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the biggest implication of this gesture is that at least we can rule out the possibility that China is going to build an artificial island on Scarborough Shoal. Right?
But it can on the other two sides of the triangle.
Well, yes, but as I said, the other two sides of the triangle, most of the places is submerged underwater. There is a bigger rock in the South Rock that would go up above the sea level, but it's very small. So to build an artificial island, well, it needs a lot of efforts. It also shows that China may not use military as a primary tool in Scarborough Shoal. Of course, they can always change. We don't know about that. But this is at least so far, the policy suggested that China would continue to use its Coast Guard to safeguard the area.
President Lai, after the Chinese Navy and Coast Guard crash, which was also close to Scarborough Shoal, the US sent some destroyers also close to Scarborough Shoal as part of the Freedom of Navigation operations. And we understand that the US does this where there's excessive claims to territory. Washington didn't at that time, repeat or reinforce its mutual defense treaty. Do you think that this time it might be a good opportunity for the US to support the Philippines, or at least to respond to what China's done in terms of the nature reserve?
United States hasn't really taken a position whether those areas they are under Philippine sovereignty or not. I do not think that the United States will do anything about it, because right now, at least not the official collision or the confrontation that really happens. And this is a Chinese claim. Apparently, the United States would not recognize it. But how the Philippines react to Chinese claim, that's Philippines' its own decisions.
Okay. Now, under the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling, which rejected China's sweeping then 9-line claim to the South China Sea, Scarborough Shoal is a traditional fishing ground for many countries. Therefore, the tribunal ruled that, quote, China has, through the operation of its official vessels at Scarborough Shoal from May 2012 onwards, unlawfully prevented Filipino fishermen from engaging in traditional fishing at Scarborough Shoal. Now, the Philippines has demanded that China abide by UNCLOS, the 2016 arbitral award, as well as the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. Professor Chen, what are the significance of the Philippines mentioning these documents now? How is it that China has breached them?
So legally speaking, of course, China shouldn't occupy those islands. They shouldn't make artificial islands and restrict other nations to access those places.
Right.
This is not what happened in reality. Right.
President Lai, the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties, this essentially basically says there should be no unilateral changes from this point onward. So that would seem to indicate that if there was going to be any change, it would have to be negotiated between the parties. Do you think it's ironic that China, we just had the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, and China and Russia came out and they said that they were the true upholders of this post-war order. Is it ironic that it can claim that, but at the same time go against UNCLOS?
Of course, it is very ironic. But basically, I would say that the year 2002, the DOC declaration of that document itself indicate that they should negotiate. But the whole thing is that the COC hasn't really been negotiated. It hasn't really reached the agreement. And according to what we foresee, probably in the next 3 or 4 years, it's not going to be negotiated. There's no agreement about COC.
Not the code of conduct.
Yeah.
The declaration on the conduct of parties.
But the declaration of the code of conduct, declaration about how the code of conduct should be proceeded is basically talking about intention. They want to finish the negotiation and they want to conduct it in a peaceful manner and to deal with those disputes.
Professor Chen, at a recent CSIS forum in Manila, Ferdinand Marcos, Philippine president, he said that his country is open to cooperating with other nations, but that Philippines' sovereignty, sovereign rights will always be non-negotiable. The DFA, in their statement, actually said the Philippines likewise has the exclusive authority to establish environmental protection areas over its territory and relevant maritime zones. Do you believe that this is one of the tactics that the Philippines can use in order to try to counter China? What we've seen in the past is an extensive playbook from Vietnam's side in the Paracel Islands. What do you think the Philippines will do next?
Well, I think what you said there is an option, but I don't think it's a very ideal one. So I wouldn't say the Philippines will consider this option because having a law to regulate your legitimacy on something that you don't own or you don't control, that's not useful.
But they could do it on the features that they do control.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. And they can also, but they can also set up more restrictions, like a special regulation, special law regarding the South China Sea island, right? But either way, it doesn't change the status quo in the Scarborough Shoal. I think a dispute is a dispute because both sides have claims and they cannot negotiate their claims. And both sides believe
They're
that
mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they are. It's so exclusive. It's zero sum, right?
But can the UN do something? I mean, there's an UNGA, UN General Assembly coming up. You know, UNCLOS obviously belongs to the UN.
Right.
You know, it's part of the international rules-based order. There was also the 2016 arbitral ruling. So
Right.
can they appeal to the UN?
I think in the future, maybe Vietnam or Philippines will go that route, but they all know this is not working. Just like appealing to arbitrary court doesn't settle the dispute, right? And also, I must emphasize that the South China Sea dispute actually predates the UNCLOS.
UNCLOS superseded whatever came before it.
Right.
So these debates should have actually been had at the time that UNCLOS was being put together, which was over decades.
It was. They were trying to discuss this, but it was held, and they never actually decide anything.
But China has signed up to it. They have ratified it.
Right. They have ratified it, but we know that countries sometimes ratify treaties but not abide by it, right?
Yeah, sometimes, but then we can't excuse them when they do not.
That's right. That's what Philippines and Vietnam are doing.
Right. President Lai, the Philippines-Japan reciprocal access agreement has come into effect. This allows cooperation between their militaries. But when it comes to this kind of thing, the lawfare that we were talking about that China is using to control and continue its control of Scarborough Shoal, these kind of arrangements are pretty useless, aren't they? Does a new approach need to be taken? Again, perhaps where allies can help.
I would say that yes, because those RA or whatever the military cooperation, that is basically on the military-related issues. And apparently, the disputes in South China Sea, many of them conduct in the form of the Coast Guard, and basically as a legal enforcement versus another legal enforcement. So when we talk about the Philippines, Japan, United States on the military side, I think it's basically it's about another issues about the Chinese threat, military threat against the whole first island chain nations, whether that's Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, especially right now the issue about whether China will attack Taiwan.
However, there's a lot of Coast Guard activity too. I mean, there even is between Taiwan and the Philippines. There's also between the Philippines and the US. So maybe we need to see more sort of expansive Coast Guard.
So let's see that how the Coast Guard will be able to evolve into some higher level, the cooperation with the military connotation.